hello, how are you? Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a February and March wrap up. I only read 2 books in February, which is why I didn't do a full wrap up video. So I'm going to combine it with March's. So the first book that I read in February was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. She is one of my favorite authors. I love her across all age groups, middle grade, young adult, adult. I just think that she writes so well in every single category that her characters, no matter what age group they're in, are relatable. I just finished reading Bridge of Souls, which I'll talk about later, and that's middle grade. I read this, which is by her. This is adult, and I just absolutely love this. The premise is that our main character, Addie, makes a deal with basically the devil, or a god that answers after dark, that she will belong to no one. She is fleeing from her tiny little village Vion in Paris because she's been promised off to this man and she doesn't want to get married. She wants to be a free woman. She wants to see what's outside of her tiny village of like 500 people. So she pleads to this god to help her, and he answers and kind of twists her words, and basically everybody from then on that she has ever met or will meet forgets her. She goes back to her parents' house. They have no idea who she is. Everybody in her village has no idea who she is. And like I said, everybody that she meets from then on does not remember her until she meets Henry, who is just the absolute sweetest person in the world, and they fall in love. And it was just beautiful. The beginning is a little bit slow. It's kind of almost like reading a blog of hers where she just talks about going to bakeries and coffee shops and the movies and reading. And I just really loved it, but it's definitely really slow paced at the beginning until we meet Henry and we realize that somebody remembers her. So I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I thought the writing was so beautiful, and I cannot recommend it enough. This is the back. It says, "Never pray to gods who answer after dark." And I love this story so much. Book 2 in February was The Poppy War by R.F. Keong. Rebecca is the author's full name, but that's just how it's written on the book. Again, so good. I may have only read 2 books in February, but the fact that they were both 5 stars was still a good reading month. So the premise of this is that our main character, Runin, is a war orphan. She lives with a family who was ordered to take her in. They are opium drug lords, basically, and they use her to run drugs. They don't care about her, they abuse her, they starve her, and they're gonna marry her off. That's their plan. They need the money, they don't want the burden of raising her anymore, so they're gonna get rid of her. And she decides, no, that's not gonna be my fate. So for 2 years she studies and tortures herself basically for the Kaju, which is this like super hard test that will help you get into school. And when she does get in, she places top in her province, which is really good, but they think that she might have cheated, and she basically tells them, I didn't, but if you think I cheated, then how do you think it's gonna look that some poor orphan farm girl cheated and got past all of the security that you supposedly had up? So she goes to Synagard, I believe, which is like the most elite of the elite schools that you can get into, and she's training to be in the military, and kind of discovers that she's got some like hidden magical powers, and trains with this crazy professor who has not shown up to any of his classes. They find him like sprawled across campus, drunk all the time or high, and it was just so good. Rip to my heart to the characters that die, but I just wanted to keep reading the entire time. I was so gripped, and I listened to the audiobook on Scribd, and that just made the experience 10 times better, and I highly recommend it for everybody. Honestly, there's something in here for everybody. It was so good. Now on to March books. The first book that I finished was Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. This is a behemoth of a book, and I think I started it in January. I actually started it in like 2019, didn't get through it, put it down for almost an entire year, and finally picked it back up this year. It's 880 something pages, I want to say. It was just so much to get through. This series, The Dark Artifices, is definitely my least favorite of the three. I would say The Infernal Devices I absolutely loved. I love Will Herondale, Jim Carstairs, Tessa Gray, that entire world of like Victorian era, the dresses, the language. It was just so good. Never finished The Mortal Instruments. I got through the first like 3 books and stopped. Just because the 4th one hadn't come out yet, and by then I was just not interested in this series all that much anymore. But this is the final to The Dark Artifices, and I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars because I think I only enjoyed like this much, the last 150 pages, 200 pages, and to only enjoy that much of 800 pages is just not great. So I'm not a big fan of Julian and Emma and their will they, won't they sort of relationship. I'm glad that they got a happy ending, that they get to be together, but I do just kind of think that the ending wrapped up too nicely. Everybody got some sort of like half page about how their lives are going to be perfect now. My favorite characters were Kieran, Mark, and Christina. Whew, the heat between the 3 of them. The fact that Cassandra Clare put a throuple into this series, I loved it. But that's the only relationship that I enjoyed. I really didn't care for Julian and Emma. I felt like Drusilla's character was underused. She's non-existent in the first 2 books and then has barely any chapters in the 3rd, and she does kind of help save the day in the end, but it's overlooked by everybody. And the only thing I'm wanting to continue with on this series is about Kit, so I'm hoping that we're going to get something about him in the future, but I just didn't enjoy enough of it. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and I am glad to be done with The Dark Artifices. I won't be starting, I don't know what the 4th sort of series is, until like August or September is when I'll be starting it, because that's when Chain of Gold comes out in paperback, and I want all of my books to match and look like this. So that was my first book in March. 3 out of 5 stars, not a great reading month, but so glad to be done with this series. Next, I read The Stolen Kingdom by Gillian Boehm. I don't know how to say her name, so I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. Absolutely love this. 5 out of 5 stars. I just thought it was so cute, and I spent like a whole week after reading the book thinking about it and how cute Mara is and Alec, and just wanting to know more about their relationship. So the premise is that Mara is the daughter of a vintner. Her family owns vineyards, and she is kidnapped one day by a lord that lives nearby, and he tells her, hey look, I think that this woman that I used to be in love with a long time ago is your long lost mother, and I think that she was a Dalaran, which is this like ancient bloodline who technically have the birthright to the throne, whose magic was stolen from them by the Thungraves, which is the current bloodline that's on the throne, and I want to dethrone them, and I'm going to use you to do it. And she just kind of goes along with it because he says, what would happen to your father? What would happen to your stepbrother? So she goes through all this training to become this like, you know, noble lady that he is tricking everybody into thinking that she is, under like a pretense that she is his niece, and that's why he's bringing her to court, and then they're going to stage a coup. And she's all for it. She's like, okay, this isn't how I wanted it, but I might be able to do some good as a queen. And I knew it was coming. I knew that there was no way that this Lord Nelgarath was gonna be so nice and put her on the throne without asking for anything. And we get this really gross moment where he's like grabbing her arm, and he's like, one day you're gonna have to think about how I put you on the throne, and one day you're gonna have to repay me for that. Basically saying that he's gonna be king. I knew that that was gonna happen. But when Mara meets Alec, the second prince, she kind of falls in love with him, and she kind of sees that maybe they don't deserve to die, because that's the plan, to kill the king and take the throne, and also his sons who are heirs. And Alec also has some hidden magic. Not hidden, but it's supposed to go to his brother, who is the heir to the throne. He will one day take the magic from his father, and it will go into his body, and he will be the holder of it. And Alec just has no interest in it. He wants to make wine, ironically. And I just loved it. I thought it was so cute. I read it in like 2 days, It was really, really sweet, super easy to read, so I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend it if you're slumping and just want something to get through and to energize you. So my third book in March was The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, and oh my god, did it have me on the edge of my seat the entire frickin' time. Every time I thought that I knew what was happening, it got changed up. Every time I was like, that's who the killer is. No. Every time I was just getting a grip on the book, something happened and I had no idea what was going on. So the basis is that our main character, Aidan Bishop, wakes up in the body of Sebastian Bell, a bachelor playboy who is attending a party at Blackheath to kind of commemorate the anniversary of Thomas Hardcastle dying, which is Evelyn's brother. And also, as most people don't know, to celebrate the fact that Evelyn is being married off to Cecil Ravencourt, I believe. This like bulbous, gross man. It's punishment, basically. And everybody that's there was also there on the day that Thomas died. So it's this weird like reunion of people who were there that day, and I don't know why. I didn't know at the beginning why Helena Hardcastle, the lady of the house, had decided that it was a good idea to have all of them there. Still don't. It's not really explained in the end. But that's what happened, and he wakes up in the body of Sebastian Bell, and he thinks that he wakes up in the forest, basically, and he sees this woman flying off and a man going after her. He hears a scream and a gunshot and thinks that somebody killed her. So he races to the house, says, I think I just saw a murder, and he wants people to go out and help. But he has no idea who he is, and eventually he meets this like plague doctor man who tells him there was a murder at this house and I need you to figure out who it was. And every day you're going to wake up in the body of a different person, and you need to use that person and their connections and their strengths and abilities to figure out who did it. And if you don't figure out within those 8 days, you're going to forget everything that you learned. You're going to forget everything that you learned and start over from body one. And it was just so good. The like world that is created at Blackheath is basically a prison to rehabilitate people, so it's not real, and it was just so good. So good. I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 stars because there were some moments where I was like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, how any of this makes sense? How it's a prison and he's put in other people's bodies was never explained. But it was still really good, and I definitely want to read more mystery thrillers like this year. And the last book that I read for March was Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab. I will say it again, I absolutely love her and her writing, and I think that she is amazing. This is the 3rd book in the Cassidy Blake series. Cassidy Blake is an in-betweener. She almost died on her 11th birthday and was pulled out of the water by the ghost of her best friend, Jacob Ellis. Well, he becomes her best friend afterwards. He saves her life. She finds out later that he drowned in that exact river, and it kind of connects the two of them together, that he saved her, and she can cross over into limbo, into the Vale, and help ghosts pass on. Ghosts who are stuck in that limbo because they were either murdered and it was never solved, or they left behind loved ones, or it was super tragic or horrible. So she helps them, and her parents are the inspectors. They are paranormal ghost hunters of sorts. Her mom 1000% believes. Her dad is a skeptic and just focuses on the history of the places that they go to. So in the first book they visit Edinburgh, in the second book they are in Paris, and in this third one they are in New Orleans, and I love absolutely everything to do with New Orleans. The culture, the music, the food, everything is just so rich and flavorful. And so in this book, Cassidy has attracted the attention of an emissary of death. Somebody who lives in the Vale and kind of helps with the balance of living and dead. And because she survived and should have, I guess, died, the emissary feels like she should have died, he feels like the balance is tipped and that she needs to die in order to fix it. So he's hunting her, and he's telling her, we have seen you, you little thief. You've stolen from us, and we are going to take you back. and it was just so good. I think I read this in like a day and a half. It's a middle grade. Cassidy is 12 years old, I think. She also befriends this girl Laura Chowarty while she's in Edinburgh, who is also an in-betweener who nearly died of like the Spanish flu or something like that, basically. And it bonds them, and Laura is the one who's teaching her about all of this stuff because she also has a ghost trailing her great uncle, I think, who was part of this society of people who were interested in the paranormal. And so all this information he has, he's giving to Laura, and Laura is giving it to Cassidy. And I just loved it. It was such a quick and easy read, like I said, a day and a half. And I really hope that Victoria is going to keep writing for these characters, because I honestly think they could just go to hundreds of cities and talk about ghost stories, and she could just continue on with this series forever. I absolutely loved it. I feel like I've said that for every single book, but I really do love middle grade. It's another genre that I've been trying to, or age group that I've been wanting to get into this year. Started a little bit last year with reading Nevermore, but I just feel like they're unproblematic. It's so much more focused on friendship and adventure, and I just really need that right now. So that was the fourth and final book that I read in March. So in the last 2 months I've read 6 books. I think I'm like 3 or 4 books behind in my Goodreads challenge, but that's okay, no pressure. So if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment down below, let me know what you thought, what books you read in February and March. If you keep a Goodreads goal, are you behind, on track, or ahead? Let me know. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.